Well, good morning again and welcome to our morning briefing presented by the Washington County Chamber of Commerce. I'm Jeff Catula, President of the Chamber. This morning, I'd like to thank our continuing sponsor, Community Bank, and our event sponsor, Blueprints, for being with us and supporting this great program. Thank you again to both organizations. This morning, our guest is Senator Pam Iovino, Pennsylvania State Senator from the 37th Senatorial District. Senator, good morning.
Gets me every time. And good morning, Jeff. Good morning to all your participants.
Oh, good morning, Senator. Appreciate your time this morning, and thank you for being with us. Before we start, I have to ask, how are you doing during the pandemic, and hopefully you and your family are doing well.
Thank you very much for asking. We are. I am healthy, and everyone in my family is healthy, and we're doing what everybody else is doing, is just adapting and coping.
Oh, that's good to hear. I'm glad to hear that. Well, we have you for a half hour this morning, so if you don't mind, we'd like to jump right in to our discussion. And the first question that we have for you is, as you know, COVID-19 has obviously impacted thousands of businesses, being service, manufacturing, retail, the hospitality industry has been particularly affected, you name it. And I know in your district, which represents Northern Washington County and Southern Allegheny County, you have a lot of small to mid-sized businesses there. Can you tell me what the state is doing to help these businesses recover, especially as it relates to small and mid-sized businesses?
Yes, Jeff. And they are the sector that oftentimes has the least reserves to be able to weather something unexpected like this. So one of the programs that has been started in Pennsylvania is, we called it the Main Street Revitalization Grant Program. It is funded by monies that we got from the federal government, from the CARES money, to provide grants. They're anywhere from $5,000 to $50,000. There's an application process for it. In fact, Pennsylvania is unique in that it's the first state that stepped out and did something like this. They're being run through the CDFIs, which were already in place, already had these relationships with their communities, many of the small businesses for their startups or loans, things like that. So 17 were selected throughout Pennsylvania. There's 3 in the western part of the state that are processing them for our businesses here. $225 million in CARES money was set aside for it. It is making an impact and helping. It is not enough. To date, over 100 businesses just in Washington County have applied and benefited from the loan program, or no, excuse me, grant program. Mm-hmm.
Now, from my research, then, when you mentioned the CARES Act, I understand that the state still has roughly over $1 billion left in the CARES Act. What are some of your priorities as a state senator and in your district for how that money would be spent, and again, specifically related to the business community?
So intentionally, about $1.3 billion was, when I say held back, but was not, we didn't distribute all of the money all at once, knowing that there was this, we didn't know how long this was going to last. And so there is that money still yet to be distributed, and it is very much looking to be targeted for small businesses. The program I just mentioned, this Main Street Revitalization, there is talk from anywhere from $100 million to $500 million being directed that way. And also some of it may be possibly being fenced for restaurants, taverns, the hospitality industry that has been particularly hit so hard by it. But other parts of the remainder of the money, maybe not strictly, well, somewhat related to businesses, that will put money towards the, excuse me, hazard pay that has also been instituted in Pennsylvania during the pandemic for some of our frontline workers. It's also, some of it needs to be geared towards the nonprofit sector. So not exactly small businesses, but still an operations within our community.
Senator, a follow-up question on that. Has those monies been dedicated to nonprofit organizations, or is that something you'd like to see moving forward?
It has not yet been fenced, if you will, for nonprofits. And it is something that I would like to see happen.
Thank you. You know, I know also you've been an advocate for allowing small businesses to file claims on their business interruption insurance policies because, you know, many claims have been denied. There is some ambiguous insurance language and policy language with small businesses. And we've seen that also locally with a lot of members. We get a lot of questions through the chamber in that. Is there anything that you're doing or the state can be doing to help those small businesses as it relates to those insurance policies?
I introduced a bill, business to provide some clarity and ease for the small business owners who have taken out that sort of security, that sort of insurance for themselves, business interruption, and ease in filing those claims. What this legislation, and it has some bipartisan support, which is always very well hopeful in terms of getting it through the legislator and hopefully getting it to the governor's desk. But what it says is if that small business owner has experienced business interruption due to no fault of their own, in fact, specifically if it has been a government authority, some other authority that has directed that to happen, that they should have that is legitimate grounds for a claim. Now, it does if the policyholder specifically has a virus exclusion, that's not going to this bill would not be something that would help them if they specifically have that. But if they are experiencing property loss, which we're calling the loss of income, the loss of profits to your business, that is property loss. An authority, that outside of your control has driven that to happen, then you should have access. You should be able to file and be paid out on a claim and an amount not to exceed what your coverage is. So not necessarily what all your damages are, but to what you have insured yourself for.
Now, as a follow-up to that question, and again, as I mentioned prior, we've been seeing a lot of those calls here at the chamber with businesses, particularly small businesses, experiencing that. Have you been receiving a lot of those at your office as well? And how typically have you been handling those moving forward?
We don't get a lot. I mean, we get those calls. In fact, it was exactly that coupled with reaching out to some attorneys in the insurance sector to help me understand the subject matter and then craft language for the bill is how it came about. And then we did a town hall on it to help people understand what it was about. And the most compelling reasons for doing it came from the stories told by small business owners. Mm-hmm.
I'm glad because we hear that a lot as well as our end, and I'm glad that you guys are taking an initiative to move that forward. So thank you on behalf of our small businesses. Mm-hmm. Before the pandemic, and to some extent even now, we hear from a lot of small business owners that are having trouble finding qualified applicants. That is a common theme that we experience here in Washington County. And with our members, workforce development is always very important. What have you done? What have we could be doing to help employers find qualified employees? And also, how can we be educating our workforce now to handle jobs in the future?
Mm-hmm. So, right, even before the pandemic, this was an issue that we had the right skill sets to match the vacancies and the industries and the businesses that were coming here. And so I have sponsored legislation that would do a couple things. First of all, it would do an analysis so that we would understand where the needs were and then where the gap was in terms of that workforce development. I believe we have the perfect ingredients to nail this one. And it is a combination of, yes, it's post-secondary education, that's college and university, but even more so than that, it is technical colleges and also labor unions and the apprenticeship pipelines that they provide. And then the other place that it's happening is, it isn't even post-secondary, it is while they are still in high school. Terrific programs that go on for, in my era, we called it vocational technology education, VOTEC, but now it's CTE, it's career technical education. And what they are what all of those three entities, still in the high school, apprenticeship pipelines, technical, post-secondary technical schools, is that it is developing what's being called gold collar jobs, that these go beyond skilled and manual labor. They're the skills that they need go beyond what we traditionally thought of, because the tools they work with, the equipment that they're on, is so underpinned by technology. So I think we have all the resources here to do that. We are in Southwest Pennsylvania, you know, in our DNA, manufacturing and workforce development sort of is in our fiber to do those kinds of things. So that's those are the things that are happening and that we're doing in some of it that we're doing in Harrisburg.
One of the concepts that we at the Chamber, also working with our county commissioners here in Washington County and our economic development partners, is exactly what you've been saying, is to give students options that are coming in the workforce. You know, 4-year degree at a college or university, maybe a 2-year technical degree, apprenticeships through the trades, things of that nature. One of the difficulties that we've seen is how to get that message across. You know, how do we tell students that are, you know, sophomores or juniors or seniors about these opportunities? Can you perhaps offer any thoughts or suggestions on how we can better relay these opportunities to our students as they're beginning to think about their careers?
Mm-hmm. Sort of related to, one other thing I just want to, if I could add on to my last answer, is that, you know, we're all familiar with the U.S. News and World Report magazine. There's an annual issue that we used to, well, it's exclusively only rated colleges and universities. A few years ago, they added career and technical education institutions to that annual issue, because it is becoming so important to the economy and to that sector. And this region annually, consistently ranks very high, and the schools in this area are top in the country for doing that. So I bring that up to related to the question you actually posed to me about how can we get that information out there. I think we need to do that, you know, via our high schools, and I think and it happens at the kitchen table, the dining room table in families' homes, that, you know, the other benefit, if that path is right for the young adult trying to figure out what their career path is going to be, that they figure in the economics of it, is, you know, coming out of school with tens of thousands of dollars in debt and some likelihood of immediate employment, or maybe even the need to go on to graduate school before they can really find and land employment for themselves. Or do they come out with very little or no debt whatsoever and a good paying job waiting for them? So I think it's a good news story right there.
I agree with you. It's really a multi-pronged approach. Mm-hmm. And Senator, before we go on, I would like to remind our participants, you're free to ask questions of the Senator this morning by using your Q&A button at the bottom of your screen, and post your questions. We do have a few that have already come through. We'll try to get to as many of them as we can this morning. Again, we're back with Senator Pam Iovino, 37th Senatorial District here in Pennsylvania. Senator, the next question we have for you, as I mentioned earlier, your district represents Southern Allegheny and Northern Washington counties, primarily the Peters Township area. How are you supporting businesses specifically in the Peters Township area of your district?
Mm-hmm. Well, we've actually been working very closely with the Chamber there and Brian Schill on some economic development grants that he is looking for, and I'm optimistic about those coming through. But we're you know, the district is every community, every chamber in this district they're all equal to me, and our doors here. And I think we do a very, very good job whenever there are these grant opportunities to sometimes it's the business sector, sometimes it's the school boards, sometimes it's first responders, that we get that information out there so they know about it, and then we're here to assist in applying for those things. And we're having a pretty good track record of bringing funds back to the district.
I'm glad to hear that, because the Peters Township Chamber and Brian Shields, one of our good partners in the county, and you're working with a fine organization out there. Mm-hmm. I'd like to turn your attention to your military service. I understand you're a 23-year veteran of the United States Navy and served as Assistant Secretary of the United States Department of Veterans Affairs and Director of Veterans Services for Allegheny County. Of course, you're very committed to Veterans Services and Affairs. How have you channeled that into your work as a state senator?
Mm-hmm. Thanks for the question. Yeah, I loved my 23 years in uniform, and it was an honor to serve, and then to be selected by President Bush to be his assistant secretary was quite an experience. But it comes all the way down to the state and county level, what we do for veterans. So what we've been able to do at the state, one thing in particular, it's a whole different era in terms of how we, the respect, reverence, and appreciation we have for returning veterans. I'm old enough to remember, I was very, very young, but a returning Vietnam veteran not being received back home, welcomed quite so warmly as we do now and appreciate. So out of the most recent, the first Gulf War, the second Gulf War, there has been an enormous number of veterans service organizations that have popped up to be able to to reach out and help our veterans. Employment, homelessness, community engagement, all kinds of things. It's resulted in more than 6,000 veteran organizations, nearly 6,000, just in Pennsylvania. So when you're looking if you need some help, particularly if you're in a temporary time where you're finding it, you're having some difficulty traction, finding a job or making that transition from military life back to civilian life, 6,000 helpers can be a nightmare to navigate. And so so I got together with my co-chair of the Veterans Affairs Committee, Senator Regan, the Republican chair, and we introduced a resolution to study and develop a navigation tool for Pennsylvania. We're probably within a couple months of getting that report. We've been working very hard on it for the last year to get that navigation tool out there. I think it's going to put Pennsylvania on the map for doing something like this. Another thing I've done is we've always had the Military Family Relief Fund. It would sunset every 4 years. We've passed legislation to make it permanent. It's proven its value, and so there's no need for it to expire. Another thing that we've most recently done, this happened in Allegheny County, but it could be a model for all 67 counties within the state to do, because every county has a Veterans Affairs office out of their county organization that then has sort of a dotted line back up to Harrisburg. But in Allegheny County, I worked with them from the Veterans Trust Fund to get a $20,000 grant. And what they're going to do is create and then hire to a position that is veterans reentry, that will specifically be for veterans who, some 6 to 8% of our veterans find themselves in the criminal justice system, sadly. And so this veterans reentry counselor will help that individual who has found themselves in the criminal justice system just access benefits and services that they have earned, they must be entitled to, and to help them as they hopefully leave the criminal justice system permanently, and not and lower our incidence of recidivism. So I hope some other counties take a look at it and see if it has value and is a fit for them.
Senator, we certainly appreciate your service to our country and all the work you're doing on behalf of our veterans. Do you mind if we take a few questions that are coming through from our participants?
It sounds like a great idea.
The first question is actually very interesting. 2 weeks ago, we hosted Jeff Nobers. And Jeff is with Pittsburgh Works Together, a new organization that is focusing on reshoring manufacturing to the United States. It's a great effort, something that we're behind here at the Chamber of Commerce. And this first question is related to that. With a shortage of domestic manufacturers making personal protection equipment, how can the state encourage manufacturers to reshore their production? What can the state do, or what ideas do you have perhaps to help manufacturers come back to the United States, locate in Pennsylvania to make personal protection equipment or manufacturing in general?
In general, I think one of the really exciting things that's happened in the region, and it's COVID has made a small bump in terms of it's not stopped. The progress is still happening, but it's what we're calling Neighborhood 91 out in the airports sector, and I know that's technically Allegheny County, but there will be I think there's a lot of interface there between Allegheny County and Washington County with what's going to happen out there, and it is the manufacturing that is going on there in terms of there's a better term for 3D additive manufacturing, and so it is a perfect spot for exactly that sort of product to be made. So that was very much the Neighborhood 91 was a collaboration between the state, the county, even academia, the chamber, and economic development entities all got together to see something like that happen. So I think we have a model for it here, and PPE would be something ideally suited to what they're going to manufacture.
No, that's a great start to getting these manufacturers. From what I understand, there's only one domestic manufacturer of surgical masks, N95 masks. That would be a great start to get some of that relocated to our country, because we have to be prepared moving forward. A couple questions, Senator, came in concerning the Pennsylvania state budget. And one of them is that, of course, Pennsylvania, because of COVID-19, is going to be facing billions of dollars in a budget shortfall. Last fiscal year and is projecting further shortfalls moving forward. How do you see the legislature addressing that issue in the coming months?
Mm-hmm. So it must be addressed. I mean, we literally don't have authority to spend money past November 30th, with the exception of the Department of Education, which we funded for 12 months. And we're working very hard. And we talk about the committee of 5, so it's the 4 caucuses and then the administration, the governor's office, because those are all the entities involved to come together to pass a budget. I think aspirationally what we're looking is to have funding levels that are as close to last year's as possible. So anything that that was in the governor's February proposed budget that had increases, those are unlikely to happen. But and then the first thing is to figure out what the gap is, what the revenue gap is, and then where we find it. And it's probably going to be a combination of products in terms of borrowing, securitizing, to figure out how we fill that anywhere from $3 to $5 billion gap in the budget. But it is the absolute priority. The legislative schedule will be very different than it would be in normal years, whereas sometime prior to the Thanksgiving holiday, we would see fewer and fewer days in Harrisburg. That's not going to be the case this year.
So you're going to be working overtime, so to speak.
It's a full-time job.
Senator, we have a couple questions concerning natural gas that came through, and let me consolidate those into one. In your estimation, how have local communities, counties in the state benefited from the natural gas industry?
Well, I would like to see Pennsylvania actually have an energy plan, and natural gas would be part of it. We are a state that very much has been dependent, and our economy has thrived on various fossil fuels. So I think that the most important thing is to do it safely, for the worker, on that pipeline at that drill site, for the residents, that it does not impact their communities, and then for the industry and for our economy. And I think that, the way, we have, our economy has benefited, whether it's from jobs that, so literally money in people's pockets, or the communities that are directly benefiting from it, whether it was impact fees or just the development that happens when an industry is prominent in an area.
Yeah, we certainly agree with you. As you know, Washington County is the #2 producer in the state, and we just found out yesterday from the Energy Information Administration Agency that 17.5% of the natural gas in Pennsylvania comes from Washington County. So we're very proud of that, and I look forward to working with you on how we can promote the industry more. We have time for one final question, and I'd like to thank everybody for submitting their questions this morning. We do have a lot of them, but I want to take this one in particular because it's rather interesting. It's expected that innovation in 5G technology will go hand in hand. So how can our region embrace 5G technology, and what regulatory policies do you think need to be enacted to ensure that Pennsylvania doesn't fall behind in 5G? In the 5G network?
Mm-hmm. They absolutely go hand in hand. The first thing we have to do is make the regulatory policies, the application, et cetera, consistent throughout the state. There's too many individual stovepipes, if you will, from county to county. So that's the first thing. Those are obstacles, and they then suppress the industry from wanting to come in and have broadband out to 100% of the state. So that's the first thing, and it does go hand in hand. And it's another one of the areas where COVID has pointed out is when you don't have that consistent, even robust connectivity. It impacts all aspects, whether it's a household, a school, or the business. So,
Senator, we certainly appreciate your time this morning. Again, we had numerous questions that we couldn't get to, but your office has always been good at entertaining those, of course. And if we can steer some, encourage our participants to reach out to you for questions we couldn't get to. But Senator, we certainly appreciate your time this morning. We appreciate your partnership with Washington County and the Washington County Chamber of Commerce, and we wish you a great day.
Thank you very much, Jeff. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being with us. I'd also like to thank our morning briefing sponsors this morning, Community Bank, and of course our event sponsor, Blueprints. In 2 weeks from now, we're going to be featuring, on October 22nd, we're going to be featuring Senator John Blake and our own Senator Camera Bartolotta. Both senators are co-chairmen of the Pennsylvania Senate Oil and Gas Caucus. That's going to be a great presentation on oil and gas and what it means to our Commonwealth. So you'll be getting an invitation on that shortly. We look forward to you tuning in. And as always, have a wonderful business day, and thank you for your support of the Washington County Chamber.